So here's what we just wrapped up on. We're making a new version of the REPL here, and these tests just passed. It can create a sandbox, and it could load a sandbox. We just did this whole thing together, and you'll see right here it says REPL/v2/ID. This is all built with a Hasura backend that's mocked out for these tests with Mirage, using the Mirage GraphQL library, which is pretty awesome. It's our first time using it, so if you are interested in that, you'll get to see us use that a little bit. And here you can see this is being loaded from there. And so once we just wrote this, we went to development here and tried to do this. So let's say you're on REPL, you'll see it doesn't track your information, right? And on production right now, when you go and you click share, you get this share link, which loads the data from our backend, but when you visit it, you can't edit it any further. So we had no persistence because we have no like user accounts or anything like that. And we came up with a solution for how to let people save REPLs without needing to have a whole auth system. We just let their browser update it over time if it's the one that created it. So that's the work that we started, and we just finished the first part of that work, which is to create a new REPL. So now this is development. If I were to change this, let's say, and just return interstellar or all this stuff, I click save. Now we get v2. We have this new ID, and now I can reload it, and you can see it persists here. So this was pretty cool to get all this working.
And we wrote tests.
And we wrote tests for it, which we did not have for the REPL, but we also wrote tests to cover the existing behavior, because there's actually now 3 ways to load sandboxes in the REPL. So we wrote tests as what took most of our time, but now it feels really good. So you can see right here, this is all going to be open source. But if you want to watch the video, you get to see us build it. So if you stick around, hopefully you enjoy. Okay, tell me your thoughts about React after working on this REPL for a little bit.
I definitely have some magic moments with hooks.
What about when you have to add an ad to a website?
Well, then I blame the ad provider for providing imperative APIs.
All right, let's do some emulation.
So I think where we left off yesterday is we want to make it so we have a shared Mirage server for all of our tests.
That should be it, right?
Yep.
So we can run our v1 sandbox. It is a function. It's not running it. Why is this messing it up?
Is environment
Is this not how you do it?
I think that's how you do it. I think you have to default. So you're defaulting. You want to do environment equals test, and then I think you want that thing to also be defaulted to an empty object. Yeah.
What? Why did we not get any feedback about that?
I have no idea.
It's times like this where I most feel like a code monkey. Just a monkey writing code. That's all we are.
That's pretty brutal.
We fixed it.
Cool.
Test passing. Cool, so we just centralized our Mirage server. It's called Server Hasura for now because we have another Mirage server that we use for a demo on the site, but now this one is mocking out our Hasura backend using Mirage.js GraphQL, which is pretty sweet. This is the entire server, and it does a ton of stuff. It's pretty awesome. And so now we can pick up where we left off, v2 sandbox spec. So I think it should just be type in here, click save, and then assert it was created in the back end and you're on the new URL. Yep. This is great. Cypress is nice.
Yeah. All right. Click save. Let's just start writing our test.
It'll be something like this.
Yeah.
Click save. Location should be, this is basically what we want it to be. So this guy doesn't have an on click. It's an empty function. On save.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing was being clicked, right?
But the function's not running at all. Handle save. Handle save. Oh, on save. We passed it as on save.
To catch that error, the FC TypeScript React FC type just boom finds those things
really
right
cool.
away. Cool.
Okay,
that
so
works.
it's working and cool.
Test is perfect. Let's look at the handle save. So this is just this silly. I think at some point I want this file to be auto-generated since Hasura knows.
We're just copying this.
Exactly. We're just copying
What
this.
would amplify would have been.
Yeah. ID2, we should name that something else.
ID2 is temporary. Should
Okay.
be temporary. There should not be an ID2 in this code base a year from now. We should do it right after we deploy this.
Right.
And
We'll
then
do the
next thing to
zero
work.
downtime deploy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking almost to start, all you want right now from this is create sandbox, is use sandbox or something like that. Because this logic is still, the route is responsible for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Maybe we can hide even more stuff, but yes, to start, for sure.
Isn't there a surround or something like that? Cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think, and we're going to update this to just be a Postgres text column. I think right now it's like varchar.
Should we just do that right now? Modify ID2.
Yeah, we'll just make this text.
Okay. Easiest migration I've ever written.
Yeah.
So now we can go and do REPL to v2 sandbox, right?
So it can create a REPL. It can load a REPL.
It can create a REPL from /REPL, right? So yeah, we had this from before, so it was on the video, but this is pretty neat. Basically, we are visiting the REPL, clicking save, and then this thing is creating a sandbox on using our GraphQL API, but we're mocking it out with Mirage. And so right here, after that happens and the test is then running, we get to assert that there was a sandbox that was created in Mirage's database. That's how you do that. And then we get that new sandbox from the database, and then we expect the ID2 to be used in the URL. So that's pretty awesome. It can load a REPL. So we start off by creating a sandbox.
It'll be fun to write out. So server.create.
Sandbox. ID2 is going to be like ABC.
Yep.
Actually, we don't even need to specify this because we wouldn't if we were using IDs. So really the way we would do this, change surround, is like this.
Yeah, good call.
Let sandbox equals. This is one of the good things about Mirage, because if this was running a node, you wouldn't really be able to do this, or at least not as easily. Mm-hmm. The next step here is to say, give it a config of foo, and then we want to assert that it actually loaded it.
Cool.
And so we have a failing test. Awesome. Okay, so now we can implement.
So we have ID.
The query is going to be different.
Right, so we should
go to Hasura.
Hasura, the GraphQLi.
GraphQLi?
GraphIQL.
Graphical.
I always say that backwards.
Graphical. And we want to find by ID2.
We do. Yeah.
Where ID2 is a variable, right?
Yep.
String comparison expression? It must be an object. Why is it doing
String.
this? Let's start over. Let's just do sandboxes where, method equals get, okay? Where method equals $. Yeah, string. Okay, let's try this again. Where ID2 $. Why is it doing that?
Oh, this is what, dude, because look, you got to do, we're not using equal. We're passing in.
Oh, got you. Okay, let's start again so that it does it.
Yeah.
Where ID2 equals the variable. Boom.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. We're going to need all this stuff.
I like how you think ID2 is going to be refactored out.
Oh, it's going to be refactored out.
Yeah, keep telling yourself that. Oh, because we're doing the plus. It's already a string. So variables, because we were like typecasting before because we had a...
Oh, because ID is an integer.
Yeah,
ID2
so
is a string. Got you. Okay, so now we should see a successful response. Come on, give it to me. Cannot convert an object to a primitive value. Oh, dude, the whole where thing.
Yeah.
Is that part of the schema?
Well, even if it is part of the schema, but
what's the logic for it?
Exactly, the business logic. So we can write a custom resolver. I thought Mirage GraphQL has that ability. I would love to have something that's like Mirage Hasura that gets...
I know, it does all this. How did it work by primary key?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's because it's by ID. Filtering people by last name. This is kind of what we want, right? I think this is it. So we would write a sandboxes.
Okay, let's try it.
I think the dream here
is
Mirage Hasura, because Hasura just provides all this.
Query for sandboxes, and then there's an argument that it gets.
No, to be where.
Right.
And then I think we're going to be in debugger land pretty soon.
We can pause this and come back. All right, we're back. A little delay there with some lunch, a call, and we had to pick up a screwdriver, but we were getting to the fun part here, so we're going to get right back into it.
Go to the docs, graphical docs. See how this root type is called query_root? I wonder if that's what the key name needs to be.
Oh no. Let's try that.
And this just might be up to the GraphQL server. Like, where are your queries under? You could name this anything.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, sweet.
Nice. Good call, man.
I have found, especially when working with Hasura, that Doc Explorer to be awesome, because like Hasura provides these things like Boolean types when you do like filters, and you can just see all the filters you can do. Like when we did that where, you have a whole type where you can do like where, and it would be like sandbox's bool expression, and that you can just put JSON that's like, and this or that. And so that Explorer is awesome.
Just shows you everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Wow, awesome.
Very cool.
So what is this? Is this a collection or is this an array?
No, I think it's an array. I think it's like DB. Let's just stick with records for now, and then now that I have more context about all this, I can talk to him about it.
Cool.
So with where, we can just...
records.find.
We want to make it if where records equals, and then return records, so that way the rest of them works.
This is exactly how we would write a route handle in Mirage. So
exactly.
Feels good.
I think we should just hard code it for now.
Sure. You need 2 more equals over there.
So that means that this guy is actually going to be result.data sandbox is going to be an array.
Wait, I think it might be the other way around. It might be where ID2 underscore equals. Yeah. It's funny. Sometimes I find the error messages from the GraphQL server are
super helpful.
And others it's just like not helpful at all.
Getting bad type errors.
Yeah.
Oh, we should just filter it.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get all the keys.
Exactly.
It's going to be a fun one to write.
Yeah, so now it's working, but
wait.
Our find logic is not working, but we have a valid response.
Oh, our ID2s.
Why is it?
Because we hard coded in our React component. In the React component, I think. ID2 is ABC, so I think that can become. I think you just get rid of that.
There's a sandbox. Okay, cool. So I can load a REPL, visit here, and then we need to see all this stuff. So this is going to be loading.
This is actually something I've run into where like usually when you write a component that does a fetch, you have like a use effect that's doing the fetch. And so you have a nice place to set state. But the way Urkel works is Urkel just returns you new data. So you don't really have a nice place to set state. So you end up with like, it's kind of interesting. You end up with like an if statement that's setting state in your render function, which I think is fine. It's just weird. Yeah, I think we might be trying to... Yeah, that's right. Replace, that's the code that does like the backtick stuff. And so right now we're trying to render a null config. And I think it tries to like escape the backticks. Yeah. And this is also a good habit because like if you have null in state and you go to use it in like an input, you end up passing null to the input. And then like when you set it to a string, it goes from uncontrolled to controlled. So it's just, yeah.
Cool. There's a REPL. This is right. This is the correct failure. Cool. So you're saying now we need to set state.
Yeah.
Set config input.
And it's interesting. Usually we have an effect that does this, and we have a nice little like await fetch and then set state after the fetch.
Why don't we, my gut is telling me we should render a new component and use it as the default value for state, and then have that component render the REPL with its state, which is going to be seeded with the data from Urkel.
I mean, like basically like...
Yeah, you want to set state. You basically want to do... right here.
Yeah, you can say if
exactly.
res.sandbox.
If no config input. This is what you really want to do.
And res.sandbox.
Well, at this point it is because it's, or if it's error or whatever. Yeah. But like,
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Right. This is basically derived state from props.
Exactly. Why do we keep running into this when they say we're not supposed to?
It's weird. It's just,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There it is. Pretty awesome. Cool. Dude, this is pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, derived state from props comes up a lot.
There's also, Urkel does have the, if you want to run like a GraphQL query in a handler, like if you want to run a GraphQL query when someone clicks a button, they do have like a client.query. That's not a hook. It's just a way to do a wait client.query. So
you could do it in an effect.
Yeah, but I would just, the use query stuff's really nice because you don't have to juggle effects or.
Yeah, but you're meant to probably just render from it, you know?
I'm just throwing ideas out here. Could use a ref, right? Like did set state from query.
Right.
And then that switches to true and you never run the stuff again.
I think a ref is good because the ref is from one render to the next. We need to know if in the previous render there was this available.
Exactly. I often think of like how when we talk about like building the Twitter UI, it's not I want a constant stream of tweets.
Right.
I want all the tweets that
as of a certain
point
time, which was when a certain condition was met as of a render.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that this is similar to that. You want a ref that's like did capture,
has fetched sandbox.
Yeah. It's
really has set initial state. Like when I first learned programming, I was doing Perl, and you had objects, you'd prefix them with O, like O.
What do
user,
Hungarian?
Yeah, Hungarian
notation. You used to talk about that all the time.
And now we're back to it. Has set initial state ref.
Yeah.
Because I like knowing it's a ref, because I guess if this was TypeScript, maybe that's a good argument for like, or that's a good. You wouldn't have to do that because we wouldn't like try to do it like this. You know what I mean? Because React is going to let you do this, and it's going to be confusing, right?
B has set initial state ref.
Yeah.
Use ref.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a Boolean. So we might as well do the method URL and like request body too. Make sure it all works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, back to the test. So we got to config routes. We want to request body, so we want to do something like this dot post to foo is going to return, request body json.parse.sum, and then the body will be json.stringify, like this. Yeah, that's what I would do, I think. And then method is going to be post, and then the URL is going to be foo.
Okay, this is
going to be pretty neat at this point. This doesn't work. Oh, because we haven't even coded this yet. Set method, set URL.
By the way, the
real test here is you press send and the JSON gets back.
More on this ref. If this were like a subscription, like this use query could always return new data, right? You could imagine a world. So when use query returns new data, we don't want that state leaking into our app. Like when
use query returns new data. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like the ref, it's just enforcing. I'm feeling good about the ref.
It's a good way to, I mean, it's initial seeding logic, which feels more appropriate actually for imperative code, because you want a set of steps when you first load the page, whereas use query is meant to be declarative and like your rendering is derived from it. So it might even be more appropriate here to use just a promise and an effect. Like the hook is not buying us much because it's kind of a parity mismatch. You could imagine the query hook returning response, and you could get initial response, which never changes over time, and that'd be pretty cool because then you'd still have fetching and loading and like initial fetch and stuff like that. If they expose that,
I mean, you could write that.
Yeah, you could wrap this. And just
exactly.
do exactly this and then return it.
And it's also how most of us
really
think
like
of web
buffered.
apps.
It's buffered.
Yeah, buffered. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Twitter example. Like I want the data.
But I wrote that.
Load
what did I use
page.
for that? Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
This thing is like 5 lines of code. Why do we need a ref? If we have result dot data.
Right.
This is so we could use this. This is
the problem.
We could check if it's undefined.
Right. We'd have to do
if
something
it's undefined.
Like that. Because it could be.
So then we could actually make this like null and check explicitly for null, and then assume it's never going to be null based on this. But that's kind of weird because you don't know. What if REPL calls set null or something like that, and then your logic? Really, the logic is the default value hasn't been initialized. So the ref is kind of like a nice way to do that. It's like no one can mess up this code. The REPL can't.
Yep.
Whatever use query is doing can't.
Also, like you can just make an argument here. Like you're just using like config is like now null or a string.
Right.
Is a way. Why is it null? Well, it hasn't been loaded. Well, if that's the case, just keep the config as string and track if it's been loaded or not some other way.
And that's where, in a sense, another component boundary is kind of nice, because then you would just render another component and you pass in the data, and then like it's really used as the initial value and all that stuff. If it ever exists where it's not used, because the first however many renders this happens where this is true and you don't get down here, like these states exist and they were seeded with like fake default values and they're not used at all. So it's kind of weird. Again, if you could call hooks conditionally, it would be pretty awesome.
Because if you're using another component, basically you can not call that component until it's ready, so that component always gets the initial values.
Exactly. It would be a lot cleaner right now to throw these in a conditional and only actually initialize them when we're using them than to make a new component. I mean, we're not going to make a new component because that's silly. You know what I mean? I wonder what the core team would say here. Like, this is not bad. I'm just saying, like, it's not smelly code, but it's just like this is the kind of stuff that
it acknowledges the life cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're swimming upstream.
Yeah, this bloats the And it's the kind of code that bloats your component, which is why the first REPL we were making got so, there's just like a lot of stuff like this that's kind of out there. Well, you're like trying to see default values with different logic, and it's like confusing. And there should absolutely be a smoother path from rendering from this to like throwing it into state. It's almost like you want to render the REPL passing in a sandbox, and the REPL has a callback that it hands you back a state bag. And so you render like the REPL with the initial values. This is almost like Formic. And then you have like a on render or did render, and then you get state. So the parent still owns the state, and it gets updated and stuff. But then you can do stuff with it, because it is initial values. But there should be a smoother thing. Let's stick with this for a little bit.
Yeah. Wait, it should be a post request.
Yeah. You know why? Because there's a bug.
Oh, does it need to be? I think it needs to be capital P post in server create. I think I saw that earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. That is so cool, man. That's really neat. So let's write our assertion here. The text is actually just text. So expect text to equal, because it's a text response.
Oh yeah, data.
Data. Let's go. It's not pressing it. We need to wait. We need to wait until it's ready.
Loading. I was going to say, you can see the outline, so it looks like it did press it.
Visit, and then wait for it to be ready. Pretty cool, man. It's a string. Okay, whatever. It's fine.
Oh, yeah.
We could make it if the response is nice, dude. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
What's cool is like, how confident are you that we could like go to development, load a V2 actually we can just do that right now because we have a V2 sandbox in there, don't we?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah,
so
I think it's /2. Oh, super confident, by the way. Super confident.
Wait, is this on tape?
Let's look at the data for sandbox 2 that's coming back, because that might just be like data we inserted ourselves. Actually,
yeah.
So
it doesn't have it's not going to have a method, and so
exactly
it's all null.
Yep.
We should make our code more robust to weird responses from the back end, shouldn't we? Isn't this where like Elm, like you would never run into this because like you would have already considered this path in your code, you would have had to for your code to compile? I think that's true. Because when Derek was talking to us about Elm, he was saying there's a point at which you turn the data from JSON into your object types, and that has to go through type checking. You have to consider the null cases.
I think here, I think it's like, well, why is our database allowing a null method?
No, because imagine later we add another thing. We add something else, like history or like initial seeds or something like that. And then those are all null in the back. Yeah. So we should make the code just run with like garbage, like if it's null.
No, but wait, hold on.
Conservative in what you accept and liberal in what you send? Or is it the reverse? You're supposed to be conservative in what you accept because like you don't know. It's a foreign object.
But like, can't you
also, dude, we can just do this, bro, right here.
Can't you just make that argument about the database?
Just right here. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. You were right, dude.
Well,
that's
not
a dream
really.
right there.
Not really.
No, you were. It did work.
The test did help, but
yeah. The integration code is right. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
I want to go back though. Like, I do think at some level, like, we know what valid data looks like, and we can also say that like method is a non-nullable column whose default value is get, and that fixes every method that's in our database.
But your API someone could change your API like from the these are two different applications. From the perspective of this application, you have to account for anything. So like if you really break down absolutely, just like you have to account for a 500 error and the database is down. Like
that I agree with, but
someone could hack your server. Does that mean your application should crash?
I think you just went too far.
I'm saying I think in Elm, like you would have a tree that says, "Here's the JSON document. We're gonna attempt to parse. What happens if we don't parse? Here's what you do, and you have to do something, or else your app won't compile. Okay, it's parsed. Does it conform to the data structure we expect?" In these ways, yes, then we know we have config method URL and request body. If it doesn't, what do? You handle that. So those are the 4 trees of that. And so if the data structure doesn't conform to what you expect, you have to write code. And so it was effectively you put this code somewhere. You just put it in like the data converter part.
That's interesting. I wonder if what you do though should not be like throw an error and then like an error boundary handles it.
Yeah, no. You should have like an application UI that says this sandbox.
Our server was hacked.
Yeah.
Okay, I get.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm more like, okay, there was an error. My code throws.
But it's not really an exception. It's a predictable known state, which is like, as a black box, when you query the server, the JSON that comes back, it either conforms to the data structure of this code path, the main one, or it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you need to say, whoops, looks like something's wrong, contact support. Whoops, try again later, right?
Yeah, right. That I buy.
So wait, dude, we should be able to go to Mirage. We should be able to go to localhost 8000, REPL, only return inception, and save it. Look at that.
Wait, there was like a...
Yeah, there was a flash. I was just going to edit that frame out. It's because it's remounting. We'll fix it.
Yeah,
it's the loading state. We need to like not transition until we like load it. Or like maybe if you're coming from /REPL, you just pass the sandbox. You get it back from the mutation, so you don't have to load it.
Urkel has this normalized graph cache thing, so we might
be able to check if we have it first.
If we have it, the query just never runs.
Yep.
Because
that would be awesome.
It's like a promise that immediately resolves.
But still, pretty cool. I mean, that's better than a server rendered app. It's faster and a full page refresh. Like if you were making a Rails app, you would click on it and it would just be like, bloop. That was a cheap shot.
I know. I was going to say how to tell that front-end developers are insecure. They finish a feature and then immediately compare it to Rails.
To the worst server render experience they remember writing. That's pretty funny, dude.
Okay. I'm liking this.
Yeah, this is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome to write tests and then just go check it in dev and it works. Both code paths that we just tested. It all works. We should commit. Where are we at? V2 sandbox can create and load REPLs. V2 REPL can load sandboxes. Let's write out some of the other things we know it needs to do in comment form. So it can create a REPL from REPL. It can load a REPL.
It can fork a REPL.
It lets you fork a REPL. So then we can assert within there that it shows you. It lets you fork. It can fork.
It's not even like fork is like an advanced concept at this point. It's like you can load a REPL, edit it, and save it, and get a new URL.
Yeah.
Fork is fine.
Fork is fine. Yeah.
And then once we have fork,
it can save a REPL if you're the owner.
Yeah, but that feels like it's after a fork, because that's going to be
right.
This is just going to be every time you click save, we run that save handler and redirect you. Now it's going to be like, okay, we need to figure out, do we update? It can update a REPL.
A user's REPL. Sandbox. Right?
Yeah.
This is really V2 REPL. Right?
Yeah. REPL is the UI, sandbox is the data structure, or the data, whatever.
Okay, it can fork a sandbox. It can update a user's sandbox.
This is great.
Yeah, this is really good. Tests help organize thinking so much, man. It's not that much more.
No.
I don't think it's that much more.
And then maybe like an error for like if you try to save.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but it's like...
Yeah. We're front-end developers. We don't...
We can add that. We can add a little dialogue for that, but we can just assume that most of the time Hasura will be running, except if you're using Hasura Cloud.
Yeah. It goes down last
Which we aren't. Our hobby Hasura instance on Heroku is more reliable.
Is outperforming my Hasura Cloud.
All right. I think we should wrap it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. That was a bunch of React code, but this is a pretty... I think this is becoming a pretty sophisticated Like it's a pretty cool app.
This is great.
Yeah, it's like an app. And we want to add more stuff to it, and now it's pretty cool. We're going to have permanent URLs, so we're going to be able to put these, share these, and they're going to hold up. Mm-hmm. Also want to do like embed equals true, and like be able to embed them in the docs, and like have like a mini REPL, and it loads it. That'd be pretty neat.
You know, it's actually good that we don't have a lot of tests to write, because we should release this.
Yeah.
Get people using it, because once people use it, we're gonna get feedback.
Yep. Cool. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.